and she's just doing a whole lot of photography for us so that we've actually got some really great images of things to Carterton. So we're going to see cool pictures coming through. So economic development, we did a workshop through the long-term plan, and it was really specifically about the money. So I've kind of gone broader here, but if I don't capture what you want, please just bring it up and we will try and cover it off as well. So economic development, just talked about what it is, so what the activity involves. So it's working with businesses, employment, tourism, inward investment, training opportunities, communications, and data in the whole wider sense to grow the region. Who benefits from it? So the level of benefit that ratepayers experience from the funding put into economic development is the greatest. So the greatest impact is to the business community, but again, it goes wider than that. So once we're starting to grow economic development in our community, the whole community is starting to see the benefit from it. So just refreshing that through the long-term plan, we made the decision to start a targeted rate to businesses specifically for economic development. So before the long-term plan, it was spread across all ratepayers, and now it's been targeted to businesses.
Brenda,
yeah,
just that last sentence
on
that page. There was no change to total funding. However, it did see a reduction of non-commercial utilities and industrial properties of around.
It was because I didn't get the percentage that I needed. So I was going to say around this percent, but I didn't quite get to the percentage. Sorry, so just ignore that part. But I can get those percentages for you. Yeah.
We'll stop after properties.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of research and looked at local government and our role in economic development. So it says it is a key function of local government. Enables us to focus on boosting our local economy, creating jobs, improving quality of life for residents, and talks about collaboration between multiple sectors. So within the local government's influence is strategic planning and policy, infrastructure development, business support, incentives, community engagement, and tourism. So further on in this, in the slides, I'll go through and I've broken down what's currently happening in our region based on those 5 key areas. But before we get to that, we've just got the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy. So this is a strategy that's been set up by the 3 councils. It's on its 2nd version. And from that strategy is how and why we fund Wellington, New Zealand. Then we've got other agencies that contribute to the benefits of that strategy, which is Wellington NZ, Business Wairarapa, Destination Wairarapa, Dark Skies, and others. I'll move on to what we're currently doing, but it might be a bit of a jump around going back and forth, sorry. So what's currently happening in the Carterton district and then the Wellington, the Wairarapa region. So we've gone for breaking it down to make it really clear what Carterton's doing, and then holistically what's happening across the Wairarapa. So in that strategic planning and policy, we've got funding towards the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy, which is Wellington NZ. We've endorsed the destination management plan. In the Wairarapa region, we've got the strategy, and the action plan for this financial year is specifically around the water resilience, food and fibre, and workforce development. We've got the regional economic development plan, the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee, the Wairarapa Combined District Plan, and the Wairarapa Water Resilience Strategy. In the infrastructure space, there's the Wainawa Water. There's probably more to add to that after this morning's discussions. The BAU infrastructure, including our roading, our regulatory, and our parks, and the Wainawa industrial area. Going into the promoting tourism and culture, we've got Destination Wairarapa, and the Balloon Festival through grants funding, Harvest through in-kind grant funding, funding towards the 5 Towns Trail. We've got in the Wairarapa region, Destination Wairarapa, the Destination Management Plan, the Trails Trust, the Dark Skies Tourism Promotion, and the Wellington NZ Major Events Fund. And then in business incentives in Carterton specifically, so we've got relationships with business groups, so Go Carterton, funding support to business Wairarapa, regulatory services that are not currently charging for consents on heritage buildings, and then working with CBD owners on redevelopments of sites around demolition. So that's specifically around the demolition site that's across the road, and the regulatory team worked with them to find a happy medium until they're ready to build again. And we've got a little parklet which creates a space for our community, and not just a boarded up wall that people are going to tag. So in the wider sense of that, we've got the Food and Fibre Capability Series, Workforce Development Action Plan, Business Wairarapa, Girls Who Grow, the Regional Business Partners Network, Dark Skies Business Capability, and then through the district plan, we've been updating the guidelines for the Wairarapa centres around how the look and feel of towns should be. And then community engagement and collaboration. I put the event centre in there as top, that is one of our main draw cards in Carterton. The Arts Festival, which has received really positive feedback coming back to us. The MTFJ program, which Carterton is leading on behalf of 3 councils, supporting local events, supporting local initiatives, and Keep Carterton Beautiful group. So wider than that, we've got Water Education, Dark Skies Working Group, and Wellington NZ and Dark Skies supporting iwi development. I've probably missed multiple things off that list because when I actually started to put it all together, there was quite a few things that are bubbling away, groups that are doing things that we just are not touching in this space as well. Is there any questions on that before I jump ahead? Nope. Oh.
Let's go back to the WEDS business support initiatives. Yeah, you're right. There are things that we probably gloss over because we take it as read that they are part of the WEDS strategy, but that support that we give to small businesses, startup businesses, and growing business capability within SMEs, that's all contained inside, and the workforce leadership development, that's all contained within the WEDS document.
Yeah.
So the WEDS document is quite broad and it focuses on workforce,
resilience,
water resilience, and food and fibre. Yeah.
And then I think that is the quarterly reports that you're seeing back into council now. So they've got the 3 main streams that they're working on, and then they're reporting back on that. Within that, there's a significant amount going into that workforce across multiple areas, through right from the medical area to the education area, tackling needs, and then working with businesses. And I think we probably, it's quite easy to say, oh yeah, the workforce development and the work that we're doing there, but there's actually a massive amount of work that's happening in that space.
And the area that gets missed unless you're actually sitting in on those meetings is the work they're doing in the medical space to try and bring in more doctors, more nurses, working with, and I think they really should be working more closely with that rural health group that presented at the Combined Council, because they seem to have a great leverage in on the medical council, which is a problem area. But there's a lot of work in that space that's been done, and it's probably hidden under a bushel, so to speak, not seen.
Daffodil Day is not a thing.
Didn't put Daffodil Day. Apologies.
That's it. Really bad.
But I used all their photos. So here is just some bits and pieces that we've pulled from the long-term plan. So the vision of our long-term plan, and then from the community survey, there was a whole lot around the town centre that I just really wanted to bring to front and centre. So the town look and feel in 2021, the satisfaction results were 61%. And in 22, the results were 58. And now 2024, our satisfaction results are sitting at 37.6. So we're really declining in our community's views on our town centre and what we're doing in and around the place. So do you want me to go? I think we've thrown up some ideas next of what we could be doing differently. But before we jump into that, do you want me to go back and talk further about Business Wairarapa, Destination Wairarapa and Wellington NZ?
Budget that we've got, or do you want to?
Guess the connect I'm still looking for is Carterton District Council's strategic plan. Now, this council did not review or change the strategic plan from the previous year. So that document is a living document, it's alive, and it's valid. It's what stands, and it's making sure that what we're doing in economic development buttons in to our strategic plan, and that they both button up on each other. That's, to make it in line with, or maybe, if councillors feel the strategic plan needs a refresh. I guess the one thing that I am conscious of is the new government's removal of well-beings. I'm taking it as read that they didn't remove economic well-being, or they just changed the wording, and how does that all align?
No, on the 30th of June.
Yeah.
The indicators that have come through so far is removal of well-being and further development of economic development. So growing economic development, I think, in the place of. So we'll lose the really specific, these 4 areas.
Social,
environmental, and we think that economic development will remain as with the full well-being.
Yeah. And the irony is that economic well-being will only be achievable if you've got environmental well-being alongside of that. But that's a perception that the council's entitled to take of its own accord. It can't be constrained. It can link things how it likes, to be honest.
So the announcement around the well-beings will occur at the end of this month, when the government plans to introduce new legislation to, not sure what the right word is, but to better manage, in their view, local government, and that will coincide with the release of the performance metrics. So we have a bunch of performance metrics that'll come out. There, we're looking pretty good on. The well-beings will be reviewed, and new legislation will be introduced all at the same time, all on the 30th of June, all right before nominations for local government elections. So not that looks like it's deliberate.
I think a good place for us to perhaps start is with the budgets.
Yeah.
What we're getting and what we're spending. And,
yeah.
And see how things fit in.
Yep.
You see that? Oh, look, it's massive up there. So this is our current budget. It's pretty. So I think we roughly get around 170. That is split out between. So we're funding. The majority of the funding is going out to those external providers. It's going out to Wellington NZ. It's going out to Business Wairarapa. It's going out to Destination Wairarapa. Even
why not?
Right. just going to pull this down for a minute because you're going to ask specific questions and I don't have them on the slide.
Yeah, weeds is 59,
65,
65. Destination one of
55,
business one of
15,
needs dark spots.
currently 5, next financial year 10.
That's
Aratoy come under that?
No, so through the long-term plan, we proposed to move Aratoy, Cobblestones, and a few others over to this, but we didn't end up doing that. Sorry, it's 60K for WEDs, just and 56 for Destination Wairarapa. My numbers were a little bit out. And then we have the local projects, which is where we funded Go Carterton's Space Week last financial year, or this financial year,
And that is
10.
five.
And how much do we raise through the economic?
316, was that the full year budget number that you, oh, did you take it away?
So yeah, because you were asking me questions that I didn't have the answers to on that screen. Hang on a second, it's coming back up.
Well, full year budget, 312. Rates, targeted rates.
So it's this financial year.
So 290 then, is that right?
Yeah.
290.
Yeah.
So,
AGC.
IGC is probably just offsetting something.
Yeah.
Double check that. The targeted rate, as you say, the targeted rate is sitting there on a UAGC targeted rate.
So it's like
310. 310.
The reason I ask is because my recollection from when we did the rating review was that instead of 100% of economic development coming out of general rate, the idea was to have an economic development rate which would raise 50% of the budget. So is that 310 the economic development rate times 2?
Yes, because you're absolutely right. So half of that is so I mean this is this year, right? But
Yeah.
I thought 50% is going to come through next year. It should be half and half. So 50% through targeted rates, 50% through UAGC. So it should balance out more next year, I thought. Is that what we?
So it'll be about 150.
No, I'm confused. I'm confused.
That's not what that says. That's
No, that's not what that says.
That's because that's this financial year
Mm.
and there's no targeted rate.
We didn't change it for next year. We changed it for this year.
No, there is. I can tell you.
I thought we changed it for this year.
It definitely was in this year.
Yeah, it's in this year, so I don't know why it's not showing up like that. But anyhow, okay, I think. Sorry, just trying to unpack financials.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we did.
Otherwise, I want my money back.
Yeah, we did.
This year, the long-term plan. Yeah.
We'll go and find out what's going.
I guess I'm just trying to work out how much money we've actually got overall to check at this area.
Didn't you see that in the annual plan today, this morning?
No,
You said you read all the financials.
I was just worried about election and difference.
The $8,000
Not 39.
in total.
might roll on. So there's a few things that we could be doing more of. And sitting around having conversations with a few people, I'm proposing, and just don't shoot the messenger. I'm proposing to restart the Economic Development Advisory Group. And the reasons for that is in conversations with Go Carterton and conversations with other people around town, we've lost a lot of the connection. So we all used to go, oh my God, EDAG advisory group, and everybody kind of did an eye roll. And we weren't really achieving much out of it. But with it being gone for quite some time now, we've lost a lot of the connection with the small businesses, with the groups, with the Wainara industrial area. And we've started to see those gaps become really apparent. So I'm proposing that we restart Economic Development Advisory Group with a really clear terms of reference on what the benefits of it will be, how we move through, how we work together, and just create a bit of a connection back with our business community.
So how do you ensure, I mean, Carterton's not Martinborough, not South Wairarapa with the strong tourism, Airbnb, hospitality sector. We're more diverse, or we are diverse. We've got some very highly regarded engineering companies in here, and we've got some big farmers, and we've got a broad mix in agriculture, everything from arable land to vineyards to traditional sheep and beef and high intensity dairy. And then we've got our high street, and our retailers who struggle, when times get tough. And then, of course, there's the dairies. And I note that there's a certain element of our business community that never engages. I get engagement with them because I mix with them. It's the Indians, the Sikhs, the Muslims. And if you look at how they're growing their business, they are running totally against the grain. Muhammad Dowd is opening his 5th or 6th business in the space.
It would be important to make sure they're on this advisory group.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, is how do you ensure you don't have too big a group, but you have a broad. We don't want to get back in the situation where it's just a small group of people who talk to each other regularly and disenfranchising, the major contributors to the GDP.
Each of the areas would be really good to have on that as a membership.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the benefit of where Go Carterton has already got a number of people, like a number of businesses attached to it, but not all businesses attached to it. They can represent those businesses, and then we just identify the other areas that we need to address and bring them around the table without creating a massive group.
You have a reference group that you pull in occasionally with an advisory group. So, like it's something small and manageable, widely represented with a broader net around that you can pull in. How did you do it in the past?
In the past, it was very much just particular groups. So it was Go Carterton, Business Wairarapa, Destination Wairarapa, Wainawa, the event centre, and I actually think that was it. There might have been another couple of groups on there, but it was very tight.
Well, what was the discussion around combining the walking wheels and
So
places?
guys about this.
For me, people and places that's under. Well, we're wanting to combine two, but now we're adding another one.
Yeah. So following on from the last Walking and Wheels and we'll cancel People and Places, Walking and Wheels advisory group, Self and Bex went away and had a conversation around how we could get more benefit out of these groups. And we were having a conversation around changing both groups into an urban advisory group and opening it up. So we would cover People and Places, Walking and Wheels, plus there's some other things. And there's always a lot of crossover between the two, walking the wheels, people and places, when you're talking events or things that are happening. So we ran a very high, I sort of spoke to Jeff and spoke to Steve and Ron at our catch up last week, just said, is this a possibility that we could consider? So we've been, we haven't done anything further than that other than consider it. But I guess, I mean, it could be considered, but then the business area, economic development area is again going to be slightly different to what the urban ratepayers need and what the rural ratepayers need. So
I think having an ED group, dedicated group with representation from viticulture, farming, Wainawa, local businesses, the sea community, etc., having a I think that's, to me, is very separate because it's economic development.
yeah,
And focus purely on that. And then I think having an urban, like you guys have obviously spoken about, also makes a lot of sense. We've already got the rural advisory group. So having an urban advisory group, and I was away last week, but it's everyone goes around the table and that's it. And it's, I think the focus is now shifting within our communities.
yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense, having the rural, urban, and an ED.
And I think we've achieved some really amazing things out of both advisory groups. And you think about some of the things that we've done. So there's definitely a need to continue the group, but with probably a little bit more purpose and focus on. But yeah.
It seems to me to make people keen to join and make their participation more meaningful, it's going to need some budget.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be heaps either.
No.
Budget, but then also like council support to get behind initiatives.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm struggling though, is because we've kind of been through this and we've had placemaking. And placemaking was about High Street and lots of other things as well, but there was no budget set aside for placemaking.
Initially there was.
Yes, there was.
Initially there was, because I know that's when I was on Seafront and we bought, what's his name, Inwit here, and then council got on and had Dave Inwit and actually paid for him to.
Robin, if you remember back to when we set up the Carterton District Business Incorporation, it was through that we brought placemakers in and brought in those people. So, and there was a budget, and I think Broadway became a focus point, and there was specifically a budget set aside for that.
There was. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to actually ignite passion and people in the community to come out, and it wasn't a huge budget, but it did. I agree with you guys. There definitely needs to be something to just get that ball rolling, and then it's like anything. You go away to a conference and you listen to some great speakers, and everyone gets invigorated. And then it gradually peters out. So you've got to keep for me, a budget would be to keep plugging that charge in to the various groups. And that just keeps people elevated.
If that group it'd be interesting to hear from that group on the back of what's happening at the Water Resilience Group Talkfest, Brian. Now, how much money do we put into the Water Resilience Group?
25,000.
25K. And what have we achieved so far?
An action plan after a year.
An action plan after 1 year.
But there was already an action plan.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
no, the point I'm making is there's 25K there. You're talking about a small fund to enable. So this is that holistic conversation I think Steve Lawrence that you're looking for, is that where's the money being spent, where's it best spent, and coming back to Glenda's conversation around, well, are we missing a trick by not having an advisory group? What was the problem with the last one? How do you fix those problems? Is there value in bringing it back, but how do you fix the problems?
If you had a 20K budget, you could get, for the different, like the urban advisory group and this, you could get some very inspirational people to come in and do a presentation to give that injection of enthusiasm and get stuff happening. Just a thought.
One of the things that has occurred to Glenda and I is a lot of our current focus and consequently budget is on Wairarapa wide initiatives. So if you look at that list there, where it's Destination Wairarapa, Business Wairarapa, Dark Skies are all Wairarapa led, and there's no specific Carterton. So if we wanted to go back to the feedback we had from the community survey, which was, what are you doing about our town centre? There's really nothing we can do because we're doing Wairarapa. And I guess one of the things that Glenda and I were keen to talk to you about is, have we got that balance right? Because we can create budget, when we move some of these things around, but we have to, at the moment, we're committed to Wairarapa, and it seems like it comes up and we all go, oh yes, that's a good thing, we have to do that. But when you look at economic development across the spectrum, we're not really doing a huge amount in Carterton.
And the majority of these things on this list are little things that will have big impact in our community.
And that requires a quantum shift in thinking, because this council has traditionally, regardless of who the CEO is, regardless of who the mayor and regardless of who the council is, has always taken the big picture view of what's best for the Wairarapa is best for our people. But over this triennium, we have fought to hold that position as other councils have retrenched and gone back inside themselves. And we have been left standing on the rock by ourselves and subject now, going into election, of having to answer questions, well, what have you done for Carterton? And I think it's a fair question, and it's a fair time to reassess as to whether that strategy, for as long as Carterton remains in existence as a standalone council, is the right strategy or not. Because the one lesson, and if we go right back to month one of this new triennium, when I and the other two newly elected mayors were fronted and told we had to sign a document because the last councillors had signed off on it and it was all perfectly fine. And we pushed back and said, no, we got a new council table, we've got new mayors, we want to read it. And that was really the start, which we asserted the Wairarapa, probably the only time, Jeff, asserted its unity and authority over its own document. But then from there, the other two councils have broken away. And you've been left holding the baby in certain places. And I'm only picking on the Water Resilience Group because it's out to me. And in some cases, you've honoured your commitment, you've honoured your agreements, whilst other people haven't. And what have you got to show? What have we got to show for it? I think you're quite right now to step back on the table and look at it afresh.
You just look at that list that Glenda's put up. I'm looking going, the town centre, which is biggest bang for buck, and that's actually not a huge investment.
No.
Just on those points, like plant boxes instead of hanging baskets.
Yeah.
And
yeah, the other one that we were talking about was the building facade grant. So we were looking at that being a contestable grant. Quite often we hear the building owners don't have the funds to do their room, or the signage is up and they can't afford to take the signage down, or the person that was the tenant in there has left the stuff and we can't get rid of it. There's a few other councils around that have got these contestable, I guess, co-funding grants. So the building owner puts in 2K, we put in 2K, they get their building painted. And we get benefit, they get benefit. So I thought that was something that might be worth considering, as it is one of the things that we hear repetitively from the community.
Is that on High Street though?
Yeah, so we knocked that down into CBD area, and we've defined the CBD. When I say we, Solitaire and myself, going for a walk, and defined the CBD as that corner of Victoria and High Street right through to post Super Liquor at the other end.
So hypothetically, let's say that was cool. Where would that funding come from to go into that grant?
That's the $1 million question. So I think that's the question we're talking about through this whole thing. We've got this funding. We're putting that funding into Wairarapa. And we repeat it, and are we seeing the benefit in Carterton?
So so do you mean, sorry, Steve, pulling some of that money from the Wairarapa investment and like diluting how much we put into that and putting more into Carterton?
Well, it may not be necessary. I'm not sure where Jeff's got to, but we've got a list up there of about $150,000.
If Jeff can't do it, I need to go away and do it. I apologise. I wish I
You're
had.
saying there could be another $150,000.
No, because
On the face of it.
there'll be grants. So all of the grants budget will come out of economic development, Aratoi, so there's a bunch of other things. And I know this was essentially what we had to play with because the rest of it had been, I'm pretty sure it goes into grants, but I need to confirm that. I apologise. I should have the numbers for.
What does, because does around your local projects, 10,000, what does, our ongoing things like, Daffodil Festival and stuff, what does that come out of?
Our community events budget.
Yeah. Okay.
So the local projects, this financial year, we put that towards the Space Week. I am assuming Space Week is going to come back and apply for that funding again through the grants round. The other thing that we've got happening at the moment is that we're working with Dark Skies. So tonight, going to a meeting that Dark Skies is hosting at JML with the 1 hour business area to talk about security lighting and the different options for security lighting. There's again, there might be something that comes out of that we could potentially use that really small amount of funding to do some benefit into the community that way. So yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of if something pops up, we can use it for that. But more specifically, if we end up saying we want to invest that back into Space Week through community grants, that'll probably be where that ends up.
I like the concept, but I would struggle to exclude other businesses that aren't on High Street.
Yeah, and I would look at, I'm looking at Peter King's building right now.
Yeah.
And it's quite tragic.
Peter King,
It's the big building down Broadway.
The old historic building, and since Peter passed away, it's just been left. And it's looking really.
He hadn't done.
No, he didn't do anything for years, but it just seems to be accelerating now with the
tricky though. All of this feels like you just
That's right.
You sort of spend money.
and then
You're in a building.
and then by country.
My own house. Do you want
That's
to give me
right.
grants to paint my house?
I'm with you, to be fair, but I'm thinking, I'm very conscious that the next council is going to carry this burden forward, and it's the council's discipline.
I think, and I know what you guys are saying, and I agree. We go back to that survey, we've got proof, everyone's going the high street. So it's a starting point. It doesn't have to be the only point.
Yeah.
I agree with, and I know that this is kind of conflicting for Steve and probably for Steve
Belvedere Road.
with a business on the main road.
It's just mentioned. So we had a member of public choice.
And that's
I think if there's an allocation or that money's there, I think it's going to be a good decision going forward. And I appreciate what the Ron said about we have been a Wairarapa focus. But I do agree the community's asking about High Street. And it's bloody awful. It really is. It would be great to have some kind of funding there accessible to them. And whether some of that up there, we can repurpose it into a fund to start working with some of those businesses.
You do a survey, you ask of you, you get told of you, you ignore it.
The good thing about it is we're not ignoring it because that's why we're having this workshop.
That's right.
We're taking the views on board of what was presented to us in our survey, and coming out of that survey is that we are now having this workshop. So what are the levers that we have available to us and at the moment?
Yeah.
And then it's okay, so this is all we currently have. Going forward, we may be able to have these and these levers. And I think it's really beneficial having this workshop to do that.
Yeah. And what about it's deciding anything, you just shoot the fat and spitball. That's
What
what
about part of the 1.8 rates differential? Some of that separated out and used for
Yeah, so we went,
High Street revitalisation.
we went from 2 to 1.8 and then increased the, put an economic development.
Your computer.
That's me, the wrong one.
Can I question? Community events budget, does that come from the economic development or is that separate?
No, that doesn't come from economic development. Yeah, I'm frustrated that I haven't got the numbers
That's okay.
and Corin's not here, so
So a lot of the feedback in that survey was about why don't we host more cool events? And we've got a part-time events lady. I feel like we should use that. I know with my very Carterton hat on, I know you don't want it, which is cool, but you've got the insurance, you've got the venue, you've got the people. For you guys to put events on costs diddly squat compared to what other people have to go out and fundraise. And we could do some really cool stuff for our community through that events budget. So I would support us looking at that and potentially growing that budget. Maybe if it needs to come out of
In the event centre or in the community?
wherever. I don't mind, just more cool stuff.
because I think if I could just help clarify, I think events are a different conversation to economic development.
But then you're saying that grant funding sits under the economic development target rate and that goes to events. So
I think it does. Look, you please don't quote me. I've got a really bad headache, and you're asking me a whole lot of finance questions that I don't have the answer to on the spot.
Yeah, so I think community events as their own budget line, so does community grants, just like economic development. So they are separate. But again, that's me in a non-financial speak explaining that. So
I think it'd be interesting to look into that at a later date.
So I guess the question, and sorry to slightly phone, are we effectively talking about the figure that's up on the board there?
Yes,
Okay, so if we just
focus on
focus
that for the moment.
this, and so it's basically all of this is currently going there. So what could we reduce here to put into more, call it local projects?
But it's not,
That's
it
essentially,
isn't just that though, is it?
It's a strategy.
Because we could consider lessening the amount of money we have for community grants, couldn't we? And bring that into some kind of budget for High Street.
Yeah.
We don't have to have the size budget that we do have in community grants. But I mean, these are
And I'm probably
conversations,
guilty of, because I picked out Water Resilience Group because it's annoying the hell out of me. But it's wrong to do that. It's wrong to start poking around each of them. I still think, the title of this workshop is Economic Development Strategy, and it's that question. What is the appropriate strategy for Carterton 2025 going forward? What should it look like? Should it continue to contribute to the Wairarapa overall strategy and the way it is? Or should that be lesser focus on Wairarapa and more a focus on Carterton? What are the economic levers? Are events an economic lever, yes or no? Well, I know that there is information available for Balloon Fest, for Toast Martinborough, as to the economic impact they have on a town, on the region. So we know we could be pretty confident that the Daffodil Festival generates good economic numbers. We can be pretty confident that to a point, the Christmas parade gives a jolt, but we don't exactly know. And knowing that might help inform decisions around. Do you promote more events? I mean, the Arts Festival, we have yet to see, that's a startup. We've only just started, and it was a successful startup. So what does that look like in terms of economic growth going forward? And are there a series of events that have proven themselves as economic lifters, and are there some that are not? And that would help you shape your strategy going forward. But I think you've got to have your overall strategy, and you've got to address some real fundamental questions before you can get to that point too.
Is the timing right for this conversation? And that we've just decided to refund all of these things, haven't we? And so it's going to come up to the new council.
Yeah.
And yet we're going to be like, no, we didn't. We think we should change the way we're directing it, but we've already agreed to these things. And then the new council is probably going to go and change it anyway.
Yeah, so that, so we're locked in with the Wellington NZ MOU until the next LTP. And that is when we get the opportunity to review the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy at the next LTP time. The reason we locked in business Wairarapa and destination Wairarapa for the 1 year only is because when they came to combined council, they presented an alternative solution or alternative option to look at. And we haven't, when I say we, they haven't explored that further yet. They've been to one council individually and had conversations with them. And they haven't had the opportunity to come to the other two councils individually yet to have those conversations. The appetite that they've received so far from the combined council and from others hasn't been that favourable. But it is something that's definitely worth discussing and looking at. There is financial considerations for both those organisations within this, but there is also the bigger picture of the benefit to Wairarapa and how we work as a Wairarapa going forward in that space as well. So the reason of only coming back with a 1 year is because there's so much up in the air at the moment and what are those organisations doing that we didn't want to lock in any further, but then at the long-term plan, council would only made an agreement for 1 year. So it was very much
And so I'm wondering if the best thing that we should do right now is say we decided, yes, we wanted to have an EDAG of whatever it looks like. We want them to be working on a strategy with council to bring that up to the new council with it in mind that these other ones are going to come up, all of the funding. Because I just don't know if it's our place to revamp a whole strategy right now when we've made these decisions.
I think, Lou, you're bang on the button. I think right now it's understanding what the timeline looks like. We need that bar graph that shows where the funding we've allocated, it finishes, where the review periods are. We know the LTP's got to be reviewed, is it next year? No, it's within the next triennium. So you've got that deadline, but you want to start this work well before that so you can get some, and that might just require some information briefings where we get infometrics and we get some good people along just to advise us where the economic kickers are for Carterton. I don't know, you can map this out yourself, guys, and it's understand the timeline to where decisions can be changed, how far in ahead we have to signal that those changes are going to occur, or the council's going to have to signal changes, and what time you've got to work up this new strategy and who you want to engage to help build that new strategy for Carterton, if indeed you want a Carterton-centric economic development strategy, which I think is.
One of the things that strikes me is that we have WEDS and Destination Wairarapa come on and report to council, and we don't do anything with the report. We just say that's lovely. Whereas, well, I don't know. So look at the line running across the bottom and say, what am I getting for my money? Yeah, well, yeah. So if we do have an EDAG and it's got some heavy hitters on it, for want of a better word, maybe that's where DW and Wellington and Z should be reporting, because one of the things they have said is, we say, what are you doing for Carterton? And they say, what have you asked us to do? And the answer is nothing really. So they've got the experts. I've got nothing against Destination Wairarapa, except we're just a little slice in the middle. And
Right, we're a little straight line along the bottom.
I'll tell you one of.
yes.
Well, I agree. I'm agreeing with everything that's been said here right now. I think you're on the button to be having this conversation right now and thinking more broadly. But it annoys me when we have for years supported other councils funding bids to government. We have supported when we've been asked to tip Carterton money into certain things, because, like, I'm thinking right now of Hood Aerodrome. We agreed, this council, to put $250,000 into Hood Aerodrome back in 2013 because we could see the wider benefit to the whole. Now, I know that they've just had a review of their landing charges and their financing and their leases, and they've received a very good report, and that was kicked off by Kim. And I understand, that the councillors have just decided to shelve it, which means that the ratepayers go on subsidising the aviators who own $1 million aircraft. So why the hell should Carterton continue to put all that effort into Hood Aerodrome when the council itself is not going to make the users? Those are the fundamental questions that a council's going to have to reconsider.
We're not putting any money.
No, we're not. We're not now. But we have put our name. We put our name strongly behind the $11 million bid to get them that government fund money. And I can assure you that once government sees the result of their determinations that they've just made, it won't be impressed. Because, hey, why are we giving you $11 million if you're subsidising, if ratepayers are subsidising pilots? Come on.
What? Sorry, you go, Jeff. You go.
I can correct Lou's question. I think now is the right time for council to have this because you've had 3 years in the chair and you understand how things look. And it would be better for you to make a decision now than wait for a new council to come in and then to have no idea and make a decision. And I guess that's why I kind of really did push Glenda to do this because actually your opinion now is a whole lot more valuable to us as management than it is in November when there's a whole new group of you. So that's the first thing. I think the next thing is we don't have a Carterton economic development strategy. We have a Wairarapa economic development strategy. And we may wish to add a Carterton specific strategy to that. And I guess that's kind of where Glenda and I are thinking. So do you need to consider that we have to shave a bit of this off and create a Carterton strategy because these things appear to be important to our community through the community survey. They seem to want us to start doing some of this. And, we've got $140,000 worth of investment that's helping us, but not really helping us. So I guess that's where we're at is help us now. Don't wait until later because
I'm absolutely open to what Jeff's just mentioned then. And I'm absolutely open to having the conversation around community grants as well as to whether we should reduce that to go to alongside with what we're discussing.
I agree.
If we're looking at, our community grants are for the benefit of our whole community. So let's just snip it, taking into consideration what's been requested and actually push that into a direction that we kind of want it to go instead of waiting for an application to come in and, oh yeah, they're going to do that. Let's give them some cash. Put some pot there to enable it to happen.
I think as part of that, then I want to look at the events strategy and getting the council to do more events because for me, that's economic development as well in the region. I also always vote against all of these places because I think we need to bring everything into Carterton and I think they're a waste of our money. So I support looking at the strategy and happy to do it now if it's the right time because I just don't see what we get from a lot of those places. And I think really like now is our time to differentiate ourselves as Carterton and do the dark skies thing really, really well or figure out what we want to do and push it. I'm not sure I support painting the undersides of whatever they're called. I don't know. Verandas. But I think we could do some cool stuff if we figure out the direction and like who we are.
Something like doing the underside of just pulling that out. That's something we could get the community involved in and, paint it so it's dark skies, with the, I don't know, just let's do something a little bit different so we're not greyed out or whatever. Just you could get community involvement in on that.
Carterton did discuss it, I think, at one point.
And it's just a simple little thing that's a quick win that is achievable to go, yep, we've done it and actually has a big impact. Because when you actually start looking at the verandas, when you're walking down those roads, are not.
But it's that low hanging fruit, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes small investments are the most noticeable for our community.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how those things make a big difference.
And that's the same with the hanging baskets. So I put the Carterton has an affinity with the hanging baskets. And so people, like people either really love them or they really hate them. But actually change of time, times are changing. We've got climate change considerations, we've got water considerations, running water piping right through all those verandas to keep those planters alive. Like, is it essential? If we could do something with the verandas and with the footpaths, does the planter boxes need to be same?
I think that's the planter boxes where the building's been demolished. I mean, I've been away and I got home late Monday night.
Yeah.
First thing I noticed, like, shit, they look good.
Yeah.
Because you're at eye level, it's that street level, you see them when you like.
Yeah.
Whereas I always think the hanging baskets.
I think they're good, but I couldn't see them going along the whole.
Not the whole, but if
High
you
street.
put them in,
Because they become a hazard.
Yeah.
but you've got them in pockets, then it's a kind, again, it's a little bit like that placemaking, it draws your eye to something, going, oh, not.
How do you irrigate? How do you water them?
So they're not tapped into anything at this stage. So over the winter, it's fine. They'll be fine. But over summer, they are actually out there hand watering them. And that's
It's not effective.
That's-
Of labour force, so you
Yeah.
end up putting irrigators down on the ground.
So would it be helpful for council if we came back and said, can we just not talk about the numbers because it'll hurt my head, but if we say it's 150 and you want 20% of that to be focused in Carterton, how can management make that happen? Is that the sort of thing that, 20%, that'd be what, $30,000?
Starting point.
$30,000 and you go, we need a pot for a Carterton development strategy. How can you make that happen? Go away and bring that back. Is that the sort of thing that would
I think a really good start.
40% or 100%?
Or 30%.
Whatever the number.
I was shooting for 40, so I'd go 30.
I think that's beneficial.
Yeah.
Could be contestable between urban and rural.
I think if you've got that economic advisory group that is a good cross section and it's balanced, you're going to get that covered.
Yeah.
There's some urban people that don't want a lot of people going out there to parks and that spinning their wheels.
I think that would be really beneficial, Jeff.
Rural.
And I think it would also, thank you, but it would fit with the community survey that we
Yeah.
got, which suggested they want us to do something. The community wants us to do something. So to start with, we've got to find a pot that we can do something with. Would that be a good outcome? Is there anything else you would like us to do? So Glenda's mentioned a couple of ideas. Are there any allergic reactions to any of those where you'd say, what were you smoking, or are there any things that you want to add? So
Who would we pull on, Glenda, to just talk to us generally? I mean, not the same old, someone fresh. I keep thinking of Brad Olson and his people that are freaking amazing, but that's my thought. But who do you pull on to talk to us about economic development, rural communities?
Good question.
I don't want Rotorua's picture. I don't want Queenstown picture.
would Karen Williams
Karen Williams, yeah.
she used to be Fed Farmers and now Irrigation New Zealand.
She was involved in that the Durham wheat thing, wasn't she? I think she'd be. It could be a good start.
I don't know who you guys decide, but I just think sometimes you need someone talking fresh from outside. I mean, there are people who have been, I look at Shannon, what was done there. And who was that woman?
She's gone bust.
But
She
I mean, Shannon.
Al Centre.
um
Alcatraz.
No, oh, I want to say Kelly, but it's not Kelly. But she effectively just,
And she went into Woodville
yeah.
and she did the same, similar thing in Woodville.
The board's closed.
I can't remember her name now, but
Open again.
yeah, I was actually just talking about her the other day.
But yeah, but there are a number of people, yeah, and they seem to be women who have got backgrounds in that space.
I can find out and do some
Just
investigation.
give us a fresh picture. What could be?
Talking about the dark skies, the middle of town looks pretty black now. You walk, you drive through Carterton street lights at night. There's a bit of street light here and there, but the middle is just black.
Yeah.
One of the things that Glenda and I have been discussing is leveraging the dark skies theme. We do have Star Safari here out of Ponatahi, Sam and Harry are here. The reserve, we're part of the Dark Skies Reserve.
I want the clock tower to be reshaped as a rocket.
Mhm.
Polystyrene bolt-on.
That was actually suggested last year.
Bolt-on polystyrene molds.
So one of the things that is happening is we're doing a bit of a revamp on the toilets.
Yay.
They are getting a wrap on the outside. So the dark green will go, and we are getting a dark skies / daffodil themed wrap that'll go around it. So that was designed up by Keep Carterton Beautiful Group and Peter Velke. So we're just working with them at the moment, and hopefully that wrap will go up in September. It's just weather dependent now. So that'll be a major or the draw card, I think, in Carrington Park.
Sorry, you just mentioned dark skies. The other thing with dark skies is obviously we've got Stonehenge, but the Phoenix Astronomical Society are talking to the committee of West Taratahi Hall and are putting a telescope at West Taratahi Hall and just running free evenings once a month or something as well. So again, that's more dark sky leverage, and that's just a couple of community groups got together and are doing stuff. So that's more stuff that we can leverage off as well. Sorry, I just
No, that's good.
had a memory reminder.
See, I agree with that. But one of the things about Carterton that's always struck me and impressed me is the ability of the town to get together and do the things that it's done. And that doesn't have to cost the council anything, but from a bit of facilitation and using our comms team. I think it would be amazing if people were asked to do things, what they would do.
And for me, that point, the third point up there is exactly what you're alluding to with Carterton supporting businesses in that way. But the only thing with that is the hashtag of CBD. For me personally, I'd really like to, because it's not just High Street. I think the attraction for Carterton is 200 metres up Broadway and a little bit into Holloway and so forth each way. And I'd hate to see us just make that exclusive to High Street, but I mean, that's only my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think we should limit it to just High Street. We should include some of the other ones as well.
Business squeeze a bit off.
I'll ask the obvious question, Jeff. How's your capacity? I mean, I just started the session by acknowledging the amount of work that went into the annual plan, which we just flipped through in an hour. And then we had the Wainoa Water Project, which we flipped through in an hour. But they represent, and we've got local water done well. We've got organisational reviews still going. There's a bunch of other stuff, which is BAU. How's your capacity to undertake this mission?
Delegate. So I think what we will do, in all fairness, I think we will bring this to maybe the last meeting of the triennium, sort of the end of September, as something to discuss rather than attempting to do it between now and then. I think we need a little bit of headspace for ourselves. I know July will be meeting free, so we'll be able to hopefully catch up with some of our things during that time. And then we'll have water services delivery plan in August.
But if we look to bring it towards the end, or at the last meeting of the training, I think that would give us a little bit more time.
So would you see it all being done in-house, or would you see some expenditure needed to bring in some support like that?
No, at this stage, I want to do it in-house. I don't think we want to bring in a consultant to tell us how to run economic development again.
No. No,
That hasn't been successful.
I know
Why
that.
don't you leave it to Glenda and I, and because we've got your feedback, and I think we can consider how we might bring this together, and also how we might fit it in with the event strategy. But
Yes, I do just want to add that we don't have a dedicated resource for economic development, so it sits with me, and there is nobody else. So the delegation comes to me to do on top of everything else as well. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
yeah, so we need to.
So we won't have it by next.
This is us buying time. Yep, fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you. And if we can't meet that deadline, we will come back to you as soon as we know.
The last thing I'm going to add in there, because I know Jeff wants to keep on moving. The last thing I wanted to add in there is bullet point 4, undertake Carrington Park upgrades. So just wanted to touch base on that and say that at the next council meeting, we're hoping to bring our paper up to council with the reserve contribution funding to look at some replacement playground equipment and taking aspects of the Carrington Park design work and replacing out a lot of our equipment in there based on our playground audit. Some of the equipment needs to be changed up. So I did want to include Carrington Park, the skate park, and the community feedback that we've already had, but try and achieve something pretty amazing in that space. Because
Will that include South? I mean, I know that we've had this conversation and I'm cool, we should be doing something about Carrington, but I'm also conscious we've got another park down south and you have been working up a parks reserves development strategy. That's what I'm sort of expecting, that we'll see a more holistic document that talks about all the parks and all
yes,
of it,
we've got a
including Sparks Park and including.
Yeah, we've got our current reserves management plan. Under that, we're working on all the individual management plans for all
Right.
the reserves. The playground audit covered all of our playgrounds. Our premier playground is in dire need of attention, and the other playgrounds are okay. We could potentially also repurpose some of the equipment that we've got here into some of those other reserves. But I think, again, it comes back to that economic development, and having a destination space to come to will be another draw card to bring people into Carterton. And I think you hear comments of people going, Carterton used to be the place I would take my kids to go to the park, but they don't say that anymore. It's been a significant
It's a refresh.
yeah. So just heads up, that's coming.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all.
That could be an economic contributor. More people coming to Carterton to use the playground.
Excellent.
As a kid, we